You came to me after Sean had found out that you were married, and you came and told me this elaborate lie about her missing and this tragedy, and that
No.
And that this will be the first holidays without her?
To me, I never said, Amber.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to fight with you. You know that I never said tragedy or missing.
Oh, yes, you said you lost your wife.
No. Yes.
Obviously, without me saying much. But we were.
I said that I lost my wife.
Yes, you did.
I did, and yes.
How did you lose her then, before she was lost? Explain that.
There are different kinds of loss, Amber.
Then explain your loss.
I can't to you now.
When can you?
I can once
My
there's...
name has been smeared all over tabloids and everything else because I'm the lover, I'm the girlfriend. When you've been married to this woman.
This is the face of convicted murderer Scott Peterson, who has been housed in San Quentin State Prison, one of the toughest prisons in the entire world, including the United States and California. He's been housed in San Quentin and was on death row for a very, very long time, almost 2 decades, until his death sentence was overturned. In 2004, he was convicted of the first-degree murder of his wife, Lacey Peterson, and the second-degree murder of their unborn son, Connor, in Modesto, California. He was sentenced to lethal injection in 2005, but that was overturned, and he is about to be resentenced to life in prison, but there's still an ongoing appeals process. The tape that you just heard is Scott Peterson trying to defend the reason why he told his mistress that he'd lost his wife just before Christmas. He told his mistress, Amber Fry, that he'd lost his wife just before Christmas. And this was basically 2 weeks before Christmas. He told his girlfriend that he'd lost his wife, but he hadn't lost his wife. His wife was at home in Modesto preparing for the birth of their first child. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, his wife suddenly disappeared. He's considered, or the other way around really, Chris Watts is considered the modern day Scott Peterson. Now, this is a photo of Scott at a Christmas party with Amber Fry. On that same night, his wife Lacey went to a Christmas party with her pregnant belly, all on her own. Scott Peterson pretended that he was single. And in fact, the woman who introduced him to Amber Fry found out that Scott Peterson was married with a pregnant wife. And she confronted Scott Peterson and she said, "You better tell Amber that you're married. Otherwise, I'm going to tell her myself." And so Scott Peterson felt as if he was backed into a corner. He didn't want to let go of his relationship with Amber. So he came up with the lie that he had been married, but he'd lost his wife just before Christmas. Now, this is one of the key reasons that was cited in court as to why Scott Peterson is guilty and was guilty. And I completely agree. The fact that he told his mistress that he'd lost his wife, instead of coming clean to her and say, "Look, I'm a married man, I'm happily married, I've got a child on the way," I think that speaks volumes. I also think it speaks volumes that instead of going to a Christmas party with his pregnant wife, Scott decided to attend a Christmas party, with his mistress instead of his wife. And as a matter of fact, in the closing arguments during the trial, it was a key moment when the prosecutor stood up and said Scott Peterson did not want to be with his pregnant wife. He wanted to be with his mistress. He didn't want the responsibility of fatherhood. And he hated his life. He hated his wife. And Amber Fry is who he wanted. And it was actually a very powerful moment in court. But that alone, including the audio tapes, for me, would not be enough to convict him. To me, it's just the coincidences. And I will talk about that in more detail later on. But, people say that there's no forensic evidence in this case, but there is forensic evidence. Lacey's hair was found in the pliers of the boat that he used to go fishing. Well, I think it's the boat that he used to dump his wife's body on that day. So there was forensic evidence. Most of the evidence is circumstantial, but it was very compelling. And what the tapes do, and what, the lies that Scott told his mistress, they really provide the narrative as to what Scott Peterson really wanted and how far he was willing to go to get what he wanted. And I don't think that Amber Fry was the sole reason why Lacey was murdered. I think he was already unhappy in his marriage. I don't think he wanted to be a father. But I do think that Amber Fry is one of the reasons why his wife did disappear. I think it was a combination of reasons, but I think Amber Fry, his relationship or the desire to have a relationship with Amber Fry was definitely the catalyst for Lacey's murder. Just like in the Chris Watts case, his affair with Nicole Kessinger was the catalyst for, Shanann's murder. And, he can continue to pursue Amber Fry throughout his wife's disappearance. That's another big factor. Your wife is missing, your pregnant wife is missing, and you're continuing to call and pursue your mistress while your wife is missing. To me, that's another thing that speaks absolute volumes. Now, when I started doing some research to do this podcast, this special one-off Christmas episode that I'm not going to do again, at least not for now, I actually got some footage of Scott Peterson actually in San Quentin prison, and I got a photograph of this footage, but I don't think I'm allowed to show that footage, but it's just him in his, prison clothes, in a shirt, mingling with other inmates. And I've heard many rumors about his time in prison. And what I can say is that for somebody who I believe thought that he was going to get away with murder, at least before he was charged, he seems to have adapted to prison life, and he seems to have some kind of coping mechanism. But I believe he is absolutely guilty of killing his wife and child. And I think he's guilty because of the evidence. The circumstantial evidence against Scott Peterson was overwhelming. His wife went missing on Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas. He told his mistress 2 weeks before his wife went missing that he'd lost his wife. This would be the first Christmas without her, he said. And he cried about it. And she went missing. His wife, Lacey, went missing on the 24th of December, just in time for Christmas. His wife also happened to go missing on the day he decides to go fishing. That's another reason why I believe he's guilty. Those two coincidences. And the bodies of his wife and unborn son turned up in the region where he went fishing in San Francisco Bay. But I don't believe he went to the San Francisco Bay to fish. I believe he went to San Francisco Bay to dump his wife's and son's bodies. So Scott Peterson will be resentenced to life in prison next week, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Unfortunately, there's still an ongoing appeals process, and I just wish the matter would be put to bed. But Lacey's family is expected to come into the court, to speak. And apparently Scott Peterson is going to speak for the first time in God knows how many years as well. And I'm very much looking forward to it because I believe with absolute certainty that he is guilty. And, the family have been through hell. He will be housed in San Mateo County Court Jail until his hearing on a juror misconduct issue, which is going to be held. It's scheduled to be held next year sometime before Easter. But I think that, he deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life. And I don't feel any compassion for him whatsoever. I think he's a cold-blooded killer. And I think the way he discarded Lacey is just atrocious. But I'm very much looking forward to the sentencing hearing next week. And it'd be interesting to see what he has to say. But the guy is a pathological liar. So I don't have much hope that he's going to ever admit his guilt.